Welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer, Tucker Sennett, joining you here today to talk a little NC State football. Um, I figured, with bowl season here, a lot of people are already looking kind of at the future of the program. So I figured today would be a good day to just run through the 2026 schedule for NC State football and sort of get an early feel on what that might look like. Obviously, a lot can change from a roster construction standpoint between now and then, and we'll have to dive more into that as things start to happen in the transfer portal and with this recruiting class that's coming in, but just a fun exercise to look at what's coming down the pipe for NC State. The dates are only confirmed for the non-conference schedule as of right now, beginning with that week 0 trip to Brazil, a massive historic moment for this NC State football program to sort of break new ground for the sport, playing the first ever college football game in South America. Should be a massive event, televised nationally, and really, really special for anybody that's involved with this program, being able to sort of, like I said, break new ground and establish a footprint for the sport at a collegiate level. I know the NFL has kind of already, uh, made that trek, but from a collegiate standpoint, should be very cool for those kids be the uh, to be the first bunch to make it down there. After that, NC State has a pretty interesting non-conference schedule next year. You know, a tune-up matchup after the Brazil trip. They'll get a bye week after the Brazil trip, as many of those teams decide to do. So NC State will come back, recover, and then open its season in Raleigh against the Richmond Spiders. That Richmond, FCS school didn't compete very well against North Carolina this year, so should be, a nice tune up for this NC State team. Then a really, really challenging, or what could be a really, really challenging SEC road trip for NC State in a recruiting hotbed of sorts. I think NC State and Dave Doran would like to expand their recruiting footprint in this region in Tennessee. I think they'd like to get more kids from there and sort of bleed further into the South. They already have a little bit of a footprint in Georgia and other areas in the South, and Tennessee is certainly kind of a neighboring state. So they could make some moves there. They'll go play the Vanderbilt Commodores, who will be coming off of their best season, I think, in program history. When you take a bird's eye view of what Vanderbilt football was for so many years. So I don't know how that'll go for NC State. I don't know what Vanderbilt's going to look like. Obviously, losing a lot in Diego Pavia, the sort of do-it-all quarterback who's put them back on the map, but. Um, that's going to be a really difficult matchup for NC State and will offer a sort of litmus test in mid-September as to what this team could be capable of in the ACC. Then, as of now, NC State is slated to host Appalachian State. Um, this is a game that was canceled from the schedule this year and replaced with that non-conference Virginia matchup because NC State supposedly didn't want to make the trip to Boone for a home and home type deal against App State. They'll host the Mountaineers in Carter Finley Stadium at the end of September, if that stands. That Appalachian State didn't have the year that I think it wanted to this year, but they'll be looking to bounce back with a strong year. And then you get into the ACC opponents. Again, none of these games are scheduled. I would be pretty confident shoehorning in the North Carolina game for the last game of the season. It almost always is. So you can assume that game will wrap up the ACC campaign. But the ACC opponents are certainly unique, definitely somewhat daunting in terms of the home games this year. NC State's going to be welcoming in some serious talent. They do have to travel to Florida State this time. Nobody really knows what that team's going to look like, what resources Mike Norvell is given after this kind of disastrous season where they missed a bowl game. But if the Seminoles are improved, that'll be a really challenging road trip for NC State. As for the home games, NC State's going to welcome in Duke and Wake Forest, both of whom they played this season on the road, going 1-1 in those games. That's a certainly the Duke game will be challenging for NC State if should Darian Mensah return to Duke, um, given his talent at the quarterback position. Wake Forest should have, some momentum coming off of this pretty remarkable year in year one under Jake Dickert. And NC State will try to, turn that into a little bit of a winning streak and get another win over the Demon Deacons at home. Louisville, led by head coach Jeff Brom, will also be making the trip to Carter Finley Stadium. That's a team that NC State has had some success against at home, knocked off Lamar Jackson back in the day during one of his stellar seasons with the Cardinals. And, a program that is pretty stable right now under Brom, and he's reiterated his want to be there despite some interest from some other schools during this chaotic head coaching cycle that doesn't seem to end. And that will certainly be a difficult home challenge. Maybe the most unique home game for NC State, just because of the intrigue with this program and the direction it's headed, is the California Golden Bears coming all the way to Raleigh for a matchup. They are in a really good place right now. I think they hired the right guy at head coach and Tosh Lupoy. They have their quarterback of the future, Jaren Keave Sagapulotele, who's going to be coming back. This is a team that if it survives, its non-conference slate and looks to be a strong group, a team that could make some noise in the ACC. And NC State could have an opportunity to be a disruptor of sorts for their season when they have to make that really difficult West-East trip. NC State played a pretty epic game against them in Berkeley last year. So Cal's going to be looking for some revenge. And this is not going to be, your Cal team of the last few years with Justin Wilcox. This is going to be a brand new program with a really, really talented head coach and quarterback in lockstep. Finally, your road trips outside of that Florida State trip are, you're going to Kenan Stadium this year to face the Tar Heels. We'll see. I mean, you know, NC State looking for a sixth in a row against the Tar Heels and a second in a row in the Bill Belichick era, assuming he's still there by that point. And then you have a West Coast road trip for NC State. They'll go all the way out to Palo Alto for a game against the Stanford Cardinal. Should be a interesting matchup. Another team that has or another program that has some momentum with a new coach and more of a commitment to football. And finally, NC State will have to go to Blacksburg, Virginia to face the Virginia Tech Hokies this year. What could be a really difficult matchup given another program that has a ton of momentum financially, a new head coach in James Franklin that has been known to turn things around quickly, and Virginia Tech could be, pushing towards the top of the ACC much faster than people anticipate. I'm not going to sit here and try to put a win total on NC State. I think it's pretty safe to do what you do every year and say they're probably going to be in the 6 to 8 win range. This is not an easy schedule. They'll be, a 2-2, or sorry, a 2-1 trip through the non-conference would be a great success for NC State. You kind of have that Vanderbilt game as a scheduled loss, and that Virginia game counts as a conference game as the ACC is going to 9 on the year. So you kind of lose a non-con opportunity. And I think NC State will be in a position similar to the one that it's in this year if certain players return, if they do the right things in the transfer portal, which are both big ifs. And I'm not going to speculate on any of that now because it's all pretty unclear at the moment. And we will have plenty of time to talk about that after the Gasparilla Bowl as NC State gears up to play in the Gasparilla Bowl later this week on Friday. As always, you can find more of our content on my Twitter account or X account at Senate Tucker. You can also find that same content on the Wolfpack on SI Twitter account. And of course, if you want daily episodes of the NC State Insider Podcast, subscribe to the Sports Videos on SI YouTube channel. Get them all there. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time.